This week on the Old School RuneScape Update, we discuss why RuneLite forms an integral part of the Old School RuneScape experience. We share our top 10 plugins and discuss what they add to the game for each of us. Also, this week, the top community plugins and why plugins are crucial to Old School's success. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, episode 52, recorded Friday, October 15th, 2024. Our top plugins. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. Sirion and myself are here with a bit of a special this week as one of us, not me, is traveling and we didn't want to leave you hanging. Would you care to introduce to the lovely listeners what the topic of our week is?
I think we have alluded to it a few times, and with the new client in the future, the client upgrades coming up, I think it's about time we start about one of the topics I think neither of us was really convinced about when we started Old School, which is the plugin ecosystem of Old School RuneScape.
Yeah, exactly.
Old School RuneScape clients specifically, I guess.
To just give the listeners a bit of an idea of what I was thinking coming into this, typically when it comes to other video games, I hate mods.
You hate Oh, that's interesting. Because
I feel that they're a departure of what the original intent of the video game designer was. Unless you're specifically designing the game to be augmented by the player base at the end of it, i.e. Minecraft.
Maybe, I don't want to say addicted, but I am a very enthusiastic Factorio player.
Of course.
Over 1,000 hours, by the way.
You looking forward to the new expansion coming out soon?
Yeah.
I was talking to Earth about that this morning, and he said we're not going to see him for weeks because of that.
Oh yeah, so I play with a friend, and we have been playing basically a total conversion mod pack for the past year, right? So, because the vanilla game is great, it's a really good experience. All of the basics are there, right?
Yeah.
But you do sort of finish it at some point.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that there's total conversion mods, which still take the core of the game, but then sort of expand on it, has really allowed us to play this game, upgrade our playtime for 100 hours to 1,000 hours. So in that sense, I think mod packs or mods in general, they can really add to a game. And sure, you also have mods that transform things and make things easier, but then you get to the same point as plugins in Old School, right? There's only so much the developers can do.
Yeah, and to be clear, it's not as though that I will not touch a game if there's mods. It's just that, I tend to prefer the vanilla experience in pretty much everything that I do. And, for the longest time, I rejected the notion of picking up RuneLite as a client, and the thing that moved me over was just the fact that, I want to play this on Mac OS now. The C++ client isn't out yet. I am not installing a Java runtime environment on Mac OS to run the old Java RS client. Let's just go with RuneLite, where they bootstrap that entire process. And then it was a gradual slide down the hill, realizing that, yes, the GPU plugin is right there. I can get anti-aliasing, and I can get a skybox that's not black. I can, maybe get some smooth animations here and there. And it was just little things here and there that I do. And I mean, even if you look at my OS interface, you'll see that it is still very vanilla compared to what some people do. But what we want to do here is we're going to go through an overview of the plugins that we use and what we, feel is, just useful plugins as of October 2024 for us recording it. Then we'll go through the list of the top plugins as determined by the Plugin Hub. And then finally, just have a bit of a brief look at what a plugin ecosystem has done for OSRS. So let's dive into some plugins now. I realize in the notes we put each of ours here, in a row. But are you good with alternating back and forth for ours?
Sure.
Okay. So start with your first one.
The first one that's become unmissable for me and that I miss most when I play on mobile is bank tag layouts. Like, I think of all of the all of the plugins that I've listed here, this is the only one where I will likely not switch to the official client if it's not there. So bank tag layouts basically allow you. So you have bank tags, right, which is basically a way to have more tabs, but instead of using like the bank tabs, you just give them certain tags, and that means you can search by those tags. But like each item can have multiple tags, so it can be in multiple. So you can have like a tag for each of your bosses, for example, so to quickly get access to the gear you use for that particular boss. And what bank tag layouts does is it allows you to it makes them so that they're not just stacking like left to right from the top left corner. You can put them where you want. And it even helps you let them like set them out in like an equipment grid and like an inventory grid next to each other. So it's as close as we get to presets as.
I was gonna say this is part of the way this is what gets us a portion of the way to bank presets. And I looked at this plugin initially. I think I first looked at it during leagues last year. And I just felt like for me that I really didn't have the time to, just go in and start setting things up with this. I really didn't want to sink this time into that, and I still haven't done that, and I still am using nothing that gives me anything close to a preset. I'm kind of hoping we get presets sooner rather than later. That was on that game.
It takes a little bit of getting used to, but like right now, setting up a new tab for me is pretty quick. So
okay. And, I just want to say, folks, you'll probably hear about most of the plugins that we've used here. And I feel like this is the cherry on top of that mid-tier or mid-level OSRS journey that you've come to expect from us. Just, kind of laying out what we've been using and how this has kind of moved us from novice to, I guess, bit seasoned, more advanced player. But the first one on my list is WikiSync. And, this is something I think that really sold me on what a plugin can be, because I am a huge fan of open data. Whenever, a company or whenever a service makes their data open and freely accessible and they can interoperate easily with others, I think that's a good thing. And, there's lots of things that you want to look up on the wiki, whether it be quest list, achievement list, skill levels, what have you. And with WikiSync, it's automatically right there whenever you go to, say, an achievement diary list or a quest list. It shows you what's done, and it can provide you a bit of an idea about, maybe how you want to go for this one next. But one place this was really, 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 really invaluable, I think, was Leagues last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think my funnest feature of it was seeing, being able to sort by percentage to see, how many people have done this task. Are there any others that have been done by, 90+% of the population that I haven't done yet, and I could join them on it. That was a fun feature when I saw that one for that. And, it's not as transformative as bank tab layouts, but I definitely do think that this is the hallmark of an open system and an open extension, or rather plugin kind of ecosystem that we have with Old School. So that's why this one's on my list.
Cool.
What's next for you?
The next one is actually a built-in one from RuneLite. But when I did Wintertoad recently, I think I alluded to it on a recent episode. The status bars that show me my health bar
Yeah.
My hit points and my prayer next to my inventory, huge, absolutely huge. And being able to hover over a piece of food, see how much it heals, hover over a prayer potion, see how much it is. Like that instant feedback and having that right next to my inventory, to me it has been a game changer. And I've gotten so used to it that not having it is a little bit shocking.
Yeah, I didn't think I would like this plugin either, but I enabled it when we were doing Song of the Elves just to, get a better sense at a glance of where my hit points and prayer were at, and I kept it after we were done. And it's I wouldn't say it's 100% useful in the day to day, but it's definitely very much useful doing any kind of thing where you might be close to dying, whether that be PVM or quest boss or even Slayer creatures that are a bit hairy. So. My next one is Wise Old Man. That links up to wiseoldman.net. I don't necessarily know that this is something that you absolutely need if you're not using the Wise Old Man service, but when it comes to XP tracking in old school, I really do enjoy what Wise Old Man provides. Not the Wise Old Man, wiseoldman.net. I don't know if I said the .net when I opened this up, but they provide a great selection of XP tracking and just in general analytics based on your account. And you can go to wiseoldman.net, pop your RuneScape name in, and just press update, and it will populate with all the data that's there. But what the plugin Wise Old Man does is it actually automatically updates the Wise Old Man website with any XP levels and rank increases that you get, so that it's pretty much a live, per minute based hook in to what you're doing in game, which if you want to kind of see where you're at graph wise and, just how heavily you've been pushing the XP, you can do that. It also provides some interesting tools for, I think we used it in Clan Quest leagues. You can create groups on it, and then you can have those groups reflect with icons in game. But this is also what I use to look up people's stats. I use Wise Old Man rather than the default RuneLite one.
Yeah, because there is XP updater, right, which is a default built-in, and that also sends your data. Yeah, that's the one I have enabled.
Okay. What do you think? Do you think do you think Wise Old Man is better than that one, or do you think I should switch to the default one?
I'm trying to get a sense of what you gain, and I think it's mostly functionality I don't care much about, because my gains are updated anyway when I log out. Like if I look at like the last month and my skills, like it all looks fine. So but like if you're interested in sort of the clan and the group and all of that, that's really cool to just have that added layer.
Mm-hmm. Up. Yeah, and once again, that's a plugin that's open data. So
yeah, there's a little bit of a trend here, isn't there?
For me, at least. Mm-hmm. Next for you.
Next for me is another default one, but it saved it saved me quite a few times during fight caves, which is the NPC indicators. So NPC indicators allows you to basically highlight NPCs, but most importantly, it allows you to highlight their true tile, just like you can highlight your own true tile. And what I've really used that for, like I'm a little bit squeamish, especially with fight caves. I'd rather take it slow and take it safe. So getting like enemies stuck behind each other and doing all that, it's not always obvious what the tiles are that the enemy is on and if they get stuck behind each other, and just being able to see those squares on the ground basically makes it like way harder to make mistakes there. So it reduces that necessary level of parsing to get enemies stuck behind each other and trying to figure out where the bounding boxes are. You just look at the tiles. So that's one I really like using. I use it for fight caves. I use it for Phantom Muspa. Especially because the actual characters are sometimes a little bit behind, it can be just really helpful to make sure you get out of range quickly.
Yeah. And This plugin is so interesting to me in that it's a part of vanilla RuneLite, because to me it almost seems as though that this would be one that would be on the edge of acceptability. But of course, everything in vanilla RuneLite and on the plugin hub is effectively okayed by Jagex at this point of view. And that's where we get to that point where we're starting to see, some real transformations in what the plugins do for RuneLite.
Mm-hmm.
So my next plugin on the list is a departure from that open data theme, and
what?
one, yeah. It's bringing something in from the RSHD client, which is the progress bar on the skill tool tips that shows how far you are away until your goal. If you've set that up, it shows, of course, the remaining XP, the goal XP, and a progress bar. And it's interesting. Well, I'm not gonna, or no, you didn't put that on you didn't put one of these on your list, but somebody showed me once an old school UI, and it had a bunch of little progress bars underneath it, showcasing the progress to the next skill or the goal or whatever. That
I have that plugin. Yes, it's not on my list, but I have that plugin.
I think it's tacky.
I don't know. I can see what you mean.
So,
I think this one is also interesting, but
so that's why I went with better skill tooltips.
I can see it. The nice thing I have about mine is that because I can really see, like, in one view, like, which skills are close to the level. If I want to do something for a short amount of time, I can sort of, like, for me it's a motivate. I'm like, oh, I'm so close to like a level up. Let's just do it.
Right. Right. And for people listening, this is set through the skill orb in game, which I think is part of a default RuneLite plugin. I don't know which one. It's this.
No. It's part of a game client. I'm pretty sure. Because you can also update this. Like, these goals are present in the client as well.
Okay, so that's what this hooks into.
Yeah.
Okay, so it ties between that, and one thing I found interesting is that those goals don't sync based on different clients that you play on. So I realized, oh yeah, it's been a while since I've been on this machine, and it was missing a few of them. But that's not that's not related to the plugin.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have you linked your client to a RuneLite account?
Yes.
Oh.
But there's a but though. I use different profiles on Windows and Mac OS.
Oh,
because there's certain plugins like 117 that I really can't run on Mac OS, but I can run on Windows if I want.
Data won't share. I think the data is tied to your because the configuration of all of these plugins is tied to your
profile. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
because
that might
I
be
use
what's doing it.
I use a separate profile for my Iron Man once I found out I could actually do that. So I don't get the same bank tag layouts, which don't make sense.
Right. Okay, fair enough. But I think the last thing I'll say on this one is that the thing that I have also sought to do, and you and I have had discussions about this before, is that I've tried to make, where possible, I've tried to make the client like either RSHD was in 2008 or venturing closer to the RS3 side that I came from. And having, this familiar UI just helps in that regard. So that was another reason I went with this one over the other ones.
Sense.
All right, what do you got next?
What have I got next? This is, I promise this is the last default one. It's chat filter. Absolute lifesaver. I went, I did a bunch of Googling and searching online, and I found like a pretty good list of regexes that covers most of the default spam messages you see at the GE. and basically it just doesn't show them anymore. And every now and then, some bot uses like a slightly different piece of symbol for like their Discord link. I just update it and it's gone. Right? It makes the being at the GE so much more pleasant, because there's still just random level 3 characters standing there, but you just don't see them like posting anything in it. So the chat filter, to me, it takes a little bit of effort setting it up and getting all of the regular expressions right and all of the patterns.
So does it provide that, or do you need to do that?
It basically gives you a big text box where you can list the patterns you want to filter.
Yeah, but it doesn't provide any defaults.
No.
Okay,
so
you kind of have to know what you're doing with regular expressions if you want to do advanced things with this. Yes.
Yes, but I like there's some pretty good lists on on GitHub or other places that you can just copy in, and that will cover most of them. If somebody out there is interested, ping me on Discord. I'll try and copy you my list.
Update.show/Discord for that. I realize I didn't mention that at the top of the show.
I will be on vacation probably when you ask me that, so it might take until I'm back. But yeah, if you're interested, let me know.
Okay. And can it do, like, I've not looked into this one, but can it do basic filtering that if you don't want a singular specific word to show up, can you just say
it does that too? It does that too. Yeah.
Okay.
It does that too.
So you don't need to go full regular expression like you did then.
No, exactly.
Okay. You like regular expressions?
Well, the answer to that is complicated. I think they're great, but like they're tricky to get right.
Yeah, I mean, even me, after all these years, I still, have questions about syntax and whatnot, or at some point. And you know what I've resorted to? Two things that really help me with regular expressions. This is a bonus tip out there for anybody who is looking to work with these. There's a great website called Regexer that you can put your regular expression in and some text data, and it will tell you what that regular expression is going to do. And the other thing you can do that's really good at helping make regular expressions in this day and age, it's ChatGPT or your favorite large language model. Of course, verify the output of it after you're done.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense, because you think regular expressions should be one of the things it's very good at, right? But all right. Next up for me is the equipment inspector. Gee, another one. Another open data kind of plugin, except this time it's pulling data off of what the players are wearing around you. And, I needed
open
this.
Open data? You're just trying to spy.
Well, yeah, I needed this when I started playing, because I had no idea pretty much what the weapons and armors were, beyond Barrows and God Wars 1, right? So if I saw somebody running around wearing something quite interesting, or it looked like, maybe somebody was actually going to be being effective in what they were doing in combat, I could just, right-click and spy on them, as you said, and see what they're wearing. So I still keep this one around. It's always fun to do this at the Grand Exchange and, see what the loadouts are and whatnot as people head off before they bank. But again, this is another thing that I added to kind of bring feature parity to what the RS3 client has as well. So you're sensing that's probably my second trend, is open data and bringing features from other versions of RuneScape that I like.
Yeah.
So, and your last one.
Action progress. It's a small little thing, but and it doesn't always quite work the way you want it to. But basically, it shows you, like, when you do certain actions, like cleaning herbs or cooking, all of that. It shows you a progress bar.
Oh, so it's the RS3 Make X interface.
Yeah, this would be a perfect in your list.
I'm gonna open this up and add it right now.
It's nice. Because it doesn't actually quite look at the game data, like, especially when you sort of spam click herbs, it does get a little bit overwhelmed. But all in all, it works pretty well. I like having it. Uh, yeah, it's such a small little thing, but it helps.
Okay, fair enough. And then the last one for me is a combination of two built-in plugins, and that's Skybox and GPU. I mentioned at the top of it, there were certain things that sold me on RuneLite, and the two of those that initially did were the GPU plugin and the Skybox plugin. And the reason for that with the GPU plugin is just, being able to take some of that load off of the CPU, because if I'm going to hear one thing first at OSRS without the GPU plugin going, it's my CPU fan. And right. So
yeah, it's not false. Yeah.
So that helped with that. It also brings extra features like anti-aliasing, fogging around the borders of the map, and the ability to increase the draw and render distance. So there's that. And like I had also been mentioning, one of the jarring things upon opening up at this point the official client, and when I started off the RuneLite client, was that there was just a plain black background at the end of the draw distance. And I was like, oh, can I change this in any way? Can I either get like the brownish kind of sandy fog that was in RSHD, or maybe I can, set some specific ones, for dungeon and, a skybox in general, like a blue sky. And the answer to that was the skybox plugin that allowed me to set a specific sky and fog color for the overworld, and then one for dungeons as well. So this is just something I run around with enabled.
Makes sense.
But,
yeah, I like it as well. I think it makes a huge difference. I don't notice as much anymore on mobile, but
right. Yeah, I don't use mobile much. I think you probably use mobile more than me.
Yeah, it depends on the week, but sometimes multiple times a day.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our list of plugins. Hopefully, you guys find that interesting. And we realized that it's not going to be as zingy as here are your top 5 plugins for new.
Oh, come on! Every content creator needs to make a top list of RuneLite plugins video or episode or whatever. That's just a
no, yeah, and what I'm saying is that we took the podcast route and made it a little bit less zingy than what you could expect.
Oh, you're not gonna edit in like an epic voice like number 1.
No, we don't do that kind of editing on the show. Have you ever listened to one of our final productions of either of our podcasts?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Just checking.
I have.
But we are going to do the podcast treatment for this, and in addition to ours, we are going to talk about community plugins as well. So what we did for this is we grabbed the top 5 plugins off of the plugin hub. And no surprise to me, number 1 is Quest Helper.
I have such mixed opinions about this one, right?
Okay. First, full disclosure, we are part of Clan Quest, the questing clan. Done.
Yeah, I think quests are one of the things, and maybe even the biggest thing that makes old school RuneScape and RuneScape in general unique. So it's a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit disappointed that this is so high up and everybody uses it to just
524,000 active installs. Number 2 is at 370,000.
At the same time.
Mm-hmm.
This was a godsend doing leagues.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And on my Iron Man as well. I don't care about requests, right? Like, I'm doing them once the legit way, right? And to be honest, like every other time I would use a guide anyway, and this just puts it right in the game. So I get it. I'm of mixed minds to it. I kind of wish you need to unlock the quests in this plugin by completing them legit first. But I also get that's impractical, and some people just don't care about quests, and I need to accept that. So
yeah. And, you know, you hit on the key point, second accounts and leagues for this. So there's that. And, you know, I know that there's also lots of people who just want to, you know, get to the end of it and a space bar through it. And, you know, Quest Helper enables that by changing the color of the option that you need to push. But do you remember the Path of Glaufrey with the coin puzzle in it?
Oh, yeah.
I said I want to see if I can stump Quest Helper with this puzzle because, you know, making change and organizing the coins, yeah, it's a fairly straightforward puzzle to do on your own. So I just wanted to see what Quest Helper would do for it. And I actually managed to stump Quest Helper with the coin puzzle.
Impressive.
Yeah. I also think we had Quest Helper on for Song of the Elves with the light puzzles in there, just to ease that up.
I don't know if I did, but
I think we did the first 2 or 3 with just the paper guide, or no, I used the paper guide, and then you did no guide for those, and then it became clear that more was going to be needed, so I went to Quest Helper for the latter batch of them on that. And that's typically the kind of situation for when I use Quest Helper.
Honestly, I have so much respect for the people who, you know, they developed this and they put all the mods in because, like...
Have you looked at the source code for it?
No, I haven't, but, like, you know, looking at all of the different quests and being able to handle all of the different puzzles, even the puzzles that are sort of unique to each player, and being able to interpret that and come up with a solution. It's like basically implementing solvers for that. Really impressive. Like I think it's well deserved that they have the top spot, because I think a lot of effort goes into making this and yeah. And that's specifically, you know, what I was going to mention about this is that whenever a new quest comes out, Quest Helper has to be updated, and it's often updated very, very quickly whenever the quest arrives. So you do, you know, have to give hats off to the devs of the plugin for this, and it's not necessarily, you know, just looking at the issues and the pull requests on this, it's not necessarily a simple thing to do. So it is a huge undertaking by the devs on that one. But that's in first place with 524,000 active installs presently. Next, 370,000 active installs is 117 HD. And this is just such an interesting plugin to me, because it's not RuneScape HD. It's not RuneScape 3's HD that they have right now in that game. It is an interpretation of how old school could look with HD textures. And I believe this entire plugin and everything around it really got its time in the sun when Jagex, again, issued a cease and desist on this initially, but now it's just a plugin that's allowed. Yeah, that was an interesting discussion. Probably not one you should go into right now. I haven't read up on it, so I wouldn't actually know the details from the top of my head. But yeah, look, it's not my style. I like not having the textures, because I think the textures give it too much of an old vibe, right? Like, this is the thing. Games that target photorealism, quote unquote photorealism, right, tend to age faster than games that don't. Right? If you purposely go for a little bit more cartoony graphics, it will not age as fast. 117 HD sits right in the worst spot for me with that.
You know, I can see that.
I'd rather have a stylistic, good-looking game rather than something that tries to make it better. And I think they're doing it right with the official HD update, right? With where they are changing things like the lighting and the material system, but
not necessarily changing the overall look and feel of the game.
exactly.
Yeah.
That I mean, it's a personal preference, that's for sure.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
see why some people really like it, but it's not for me.
Yeah. And I use this plugin on and off if I'm playing on my Windows machine, but I don't use it on Mac OS because, again, high CPU usage. So most of the time I'm not using 117 because it doesn't support its GPU renderer on Mac OS. So if you look at my OSRS client, the vast majority of the time I'm just running, standard vanilla on that and eagerly waiting for the HD client. The next one on the list, again, not too much of a surprise here in terms of where things land on the plugin hub. It's the Guardians of the Rift helper with 300,000 active installs. And why this one compared to all the other mini games in the game for number 3? Do you think? Why do you think that is?
Because nobody wants to do normal runecraft. So everybody does Guardians of the Rift. And everybody dislikes Guardians of the Rift. So they used the plugin. No, I mean, it's probably along those lines, right? I think Guardians of the Rift is probably one of the most popular pieces of content.
Well, yeah, you're right, because who's going to do runecrafting? Standard runecrafting or ZMI?
Wintertoad, right? Like, I think Wintertoad, for example, would be another thing that everybody uses, but that's built in, right?
Yeah.
I think for a lot of the popular things, there's built-in plugins. Guardians of the Rift is probably the most popular piece of content that doesn't have built-in support, and that's why it's up there.
Okay, and I mean that's a very simple way of looking at it, I guess, on that. Mm-hmm. Number 4, Tombs of Amusket, 255,000. I haven't gone to Tombs of Amusket yet, so I don't know what this plugin necessarily does here. But do we read into this that this is OSRS's most popular raid?
Yeah, I think so. That's the sense I got. I think I looked into Tombs of Amusket a little bit, and I kind of wanted to get into it, and then just didn't have time for it. So another reason for me to go Desert in Leagues and give this a proper shot. But yeah, no, I from what I can see, this basically gives you like puzzle solvers and just general outlines, easy way to knowing what to click things. So I can see it being very helpful.
And number 5 on the list, 238,000 tile packs, a collection of tile markers, which based on, what's in here, I would say that it's probably for, bosses and Slayer bosses and the like. And, this brings up an interesting thing, is that tile markers is one of those vanilla default RuneLite plugins that neither of us mentioned in our plugin section. And, honestly...
Oh, because it's gonna be an official client thing soon.
Yeah, but I don't use tile markers. Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, I use them. I have this thing as well. It's really helpful. Having just immediately have the defender spots in Barbarian Assault highlighted. Super easy. You don't have to go and look up and mark the exact tiles. It's super helpful on that front. I use tile markers to mark things like save spots for my Slayer tasks. Interesting.
I find it includes things for that.
Yeah, I mean, I usually make my own tile markers.
Okay.
I wish that was easier to see. Like, there's most of the tile packs, they are related to a certain guide, but it's really hard to find the specific guide or like understand why the markers are where they are. So it doesn't really stand on its own, but it's still it's quite helpful.
Okay, fair enough. And yeah, you've also mentioned official client, and I think that's just so interesting that if we look at this as, some of the features that are coming to the official client and, first to mobile, we have things like the clue helper and whatnot, but also tile markers. And that really, I think, says something about the place of plugins and OSRS. And that's where we want to go next with this, is that in particular, what does this plugin ecosystem that we have in old school now mean for the game? You have any, initial thoughts on that based on our plugin discussion thus far?
I think the game would not be as popular as it is. I think, the game really needs a certain level of quality of life. It's old, and what we thought was acceptable in terms of quality of life,
Even
like
in 2013.
even in 2013, yes, but definitely, back in 2007 or even earlier, it like today is no longer acceptable. So the amount of catch up that or catching up that Jagex would have to do is a lot, and this sort of allows them to quote unquote subcontract that, right, to the community, and sort of not have to worry about it. Like, this is what I say about games, right? Like what we said about mods in the beginning, they just increased the longevity of games significantly, and I think it's definitely made me actually enjoy the game. Without some of the plugins, I might have like stumbled over some of the lack of things, lack of
and just the
quality.
lack of polish or quality of life in certain areas, and that raises an interesting question in terms of OSRS, and that's, when does the game, like the official client, end? When does RuneLite begin after that? And then when do the plugins begin in RuneLite? Because if you remove and you turn off all the plugins in RuneLite, it would be interesting to see what you get. Because, you open up RuneLite for the first time, and the plugins are not all turned off. They actually ship with a happy setup of default plugins enabled for that, including, like you mentioned, things like Winter Toad as an example. The Clue Helper was there, tile markers, the menu entry swapper, all of that stuff is there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you have the third-party plugins, and you have that all on top. And I think you get to the point that you said, is that you, in effect, with that, transform the game. And do you think that, I don't want to say, do you think that old school would have got off the ground if Jagex made the decision to, axe RuneLite? Because there was that discussion too, right? At one point in time, it was, is RuneLite going to be considered an official client? Because it was a third-party client, but it wasn't endorsed by Jagex, and they had even tried to get the RuneLite devs to back off and stop developing it. But here we are in 2024. If you open up the Jagex launcher, RuneLite's right there, and it's the first choice of many. It
would have taken off, right? Because it did take off without RuneLite. That I don't know how quickly that followed, but it wasn't down day one. But I definitely think that the momentum would have been lost a little bit faster.
Okay, that's fair.
Like, that's the thing we keep seeing with the old school community. It just continuously keeps, there's still certain growth,
which is just baffling, all these years later.
Yeah. But like, just the ability for like the community to focus on making the client a great thing, and Jagex to really just focus on the things that only they can do, which is the content and some of the actual underlying engine changes. And then, sure, yeah, onboard some of the core plugins into the client. It's not unheard of for games to take really popular mods and basically make them part of the client. Um, I it creates, like, to me, it creates a dynamic between the community. Like, Old School, of course, is built on this entire concept of collaboration, right?
Yeah.
There's the polls, there's the discussion, there's like everything gets done like in cooperation between the mods and the community. It makes sense to me that the plugins are part of that, right? To me, it is very telling that this is what it is, and it creates a very positive environment, I feel.
Right.
Because it no longer becomes us versus them, where they say, oh, we need to deprioritize this feature because, right? Like the community is building their own features, and it removes so much friction
And
really creates
I don't know. I don't trust it. I didn't trust it, but it works. Like, there's just an aspect of me that's like, why does this work? I personally would not trust this, and I would not go along for the ride, but it works.
I mean, there's two things, right? Like, I think it's easy to look at Reddit and like, yeah, you know, wherever there are humans, there's gonna be a shit show, like people complaining on Reddit, right? But I think there's also, like, if you give people the responsibility and the trust and the room and the space to innovate and to do cool things, there will always be a tendency for those people in the community to make cool things. And all you need to do is encourage and cherish that.
And I think they probably realize that right now with, dare I say it, Project Sonaris.
Yes, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head there, right? They're really there, like, there's all of this great stuff. There might be a lot of trash in there. When Project Sonaris comes out, though there is a barrier to entry.
Yeah, just like there's a barrier to entry with the plugin hub on RuneLite.
But there will be people who just will do awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And why not just give them that tool, right? This is why multiple games build in like map editors or asset editors, right? There will just always be people who make awesome stuff because they love the game. The content they make is not because they want to earn money, right? Their incentives are completely different as well. They really make the content that they want, and if one person wants it, more people probably want it, right?
Yeah.
And they don't have to worry about retention. They can just build the stuff that they think is great.
And that's and that's really, you know, the whole, one of the key driving factors of the whole, you know, creative market online at this point in time, is that it can propel projects like, in this case, RuneLite, forward and enable it to thrive and foster. And, you know, one thing I'm thinking of here at the end of this episode is, what plugins do I have that I actually can't live without? Because so much of what I have used has just morphed its way in to what OSRS is through me, because I use RuneLite 95% of the time, that I don't even know at this point what the default game client looks like.
I guess I still do, because I
because you're on mobile.
Because I play mobile, yes,
yeah,
exactly,
and
it's not as great.
No,
but it's definitely getting better.
Like, one thing I want to do after this episode is done is I'm going to go for a herb run using the official client, and I just want to see how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
And then, based off of that, just kind of get a bit of a brief understanding of what's there and, what's missing. Because the last thing I finished up in game was 75 fire making at Winterdote. And the question is, if I go to a Winterdote world, how is that going to be in terms of flowing and getting into it? I don't necessarily know if I'd go so far and to do more of that, because I've kind of, burnt out on that after going from like 65 to 75 in a short period of time. But that's beside the point here. Do you think it's necessary for players to know what the default game client looks like? Or should they just be happy with RuneLite?
I think it doesn't matter, no.
Okay. And I think, despite my hesitancy on mods, third-party add-ons and whatnot when I play games and the whole shebang, yada, 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 I think I'm going to agree with you that had RuneLite not come around and had the plugins for it not come around, we'd be, dealing with an entirely different conversation of what old school is, I have to say, probably. So. Mm-hmm. And hey, look what it spawned. Look what this market has spawned. It has kicked off Project Sonaris, at least. It has put Jagex in a position where they're willing to develop a plugin API and help plugin authors bring plugins over to the official client when they eventually get around to that. And I think the most absurd thing out of all this that speaks to the success with this is that the RuneScape 3 team, after Old School does plugins for the official client there, is actually going to be looking to doing a similar thing for that game.
Wouldn't that be something?
And I think that's all you really have to say about plugins, is that if it's able to penetrate that deep, then that kind of speaks to how important they are. Despite, us starting off rather innocuously talking about bank tag layouts and wikisync. But I think that pretty much brings me to the end of my prepared remarks. Do you have anything that you'd like to add before we depart?
No, I'm hoping for the very best. I'm hoping for the very best for the official plugins. Like I said, I think there's so many I would like. I think definitely most of the official RuneLite ones, I forget that they're I forget that they're plugins, or I forget that the default in RuneLite. Like, that's how good it all is. But yeah. We'll see. We'll see where things land for sure.
Oh, I just found one. I have the official client up. I just found one that I use that I've just become used to having as part of the default. It's showing the fairy ring codes on the world map.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one to have, yeah.
But anyways, we'll be back, hopefully we'll be back next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. If you do want episodes of the Old School RuneScape Update delivered automatically to you, the best thing to do is to subscribe, update.show/OS. We're on all the major podcast listening services out there. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Cast, and of course YouTube as well. YouTube.com/@OSRS Update. We'll see you guys next time for another episode of Old School RuneScape Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Bye.